Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that'll shake you to your core. The most dangerous woman, she don't come from the spotlight. She ain't born from applaud. She rises alone. And that makes her a storm you never saw coming. This ain't about revenge. This is about resilience. It's about the woman they counted out, the one they overlooked, underestimated, and left behind. It's about the woman who turned her pain into power, who learned to walk with herself when no one else would stand by her. If you're listening right now, and you're that woman, or becoming her, you need to hear this all the way through, because this, right here, might just be the moment you realize why your isolation was preparation. A woman who builds without applause is a woman the world should fear, not because she's loud, but because she's learned to move in silence. She doesn't need validation, recognition, or approval. She's not waiting on someone to pat her on the back, to say good job, or to give her a platform. She becomes the platform. When a woman builds without applause, she builds for real. She doesn't build for the claps, the likes, or the spotlight. She builds for purpose, for strength, for legacy. When you build in silence, you're not doing it for attention, you're doing it for survival. There's a certain kind of woman who wakes up and realizes that no one is coming to save her. No hero, no mentor, no support system, no tribe, just her. And so she becomes the hero of her own story. She becomes the one who pushes herself out of the bed when the weight of depression says, stay down. She becomes the one who shows up, even when no one notices, even when no one thanks her, even when it seems like her efforts fall into the void. That woman becomes dangerous because she knows how to operate under pressure. She knows how to perform without being seen. And when the time comes and the curtain finally lifts, the world won't know how to handle what they're seeing. Because while they were watching the loud ones, the flashy ones, the ones who needed to be seen to feel valuable, she was building quietly, strongly, with intention. She didn't need you to believe in her because she believed in herself. And that's the most powerful force on this earth, a woman who believes in herself when no one else does. That kind of woman doesn't build out of ego, she builds out of necessity. When everything she thought she could count on crumbled, relationships, friendships, finances, even her own faith in herself, she stood in the rubble and said, all right, then I'll do it myself. That moment right there, that's when her power was born. Applause is addictive. Most people chase it their whole lives. They perform for it, they live for it, they measure their worth by how loud it is. But not her. She turned away from the noise. She stopped needing the crowd. She let go of the need to be seen and started focusing on what mattered, becoming the kind of woman who didn't need to be seen to be successful. The kind of woman who could survive in the shadows and still shine when the light hit her. And when that light finally comes, when the world finally starts to pay attention, they'll think she came out of nowhere. But she didn't. She was just too focused to need their attention. Let's make something clear. She wasn't born this way. She became this way. Through pain, through rejection, through silence, through the nights when she cried and no one knew, through the moments where she had to clap for herself, push herself, love herself, even when she didn't feel worthy. That journey doesn't make her weak, it makes her unstoppable. A woman who builds without applause is dangerous because she doesn't stop when the crowd disappears. She doesn't quit when the audience leaves. She doesn't base her effort on who's watching. She shows up for herself every day because she knows that real strength isn't about being seen, it's about being consistent. It's about showing up on the days you feel like giving up. It's about doing the work even when it's thankless. There's power in not needing attention. There's freedom in not depending on anyone's recognition to know you're walking the right path. Because the woman who builds without applause, she's not building for the moment. She's building for the future. She's not planting seeds to get praise. She's planting because she knows the harvest is coming. And she's patient enough to wait. She's disciplined enough to keep watering the soil when everyone else has given up. That's why she wins, because she doesn't give up just because nobody's watching. She's been ignored, but she didn't quit. She's been doubted, but she didn't stop. She's been abandoned, but she didn't fold. That makes her lethal, because she knows how to function in lack. She knows how to grow in isolation. And when you've learned to thrive with nothing, imagine what happens when you finally get something. He becomes fire, not just a spark, an inferno, controlled, focused, and relentless. A woman who builds without applause has already faced the worst. Being alone, being unseen, being unheard. So applause doesn't impress her. Validation doesn't move her. She's already done the hardest part, starting with nothing. Now with every step forward, she's compounding her power. And the world won't be ready when it finally notices her, because they think power looks like noise. But real power moves quietly. Real power doesn't announce itself, it arrives. And that woman, the one who built herself in silence, she's not just arriving, she's about to take over. Because the most dangerous woman in the world is the one who built without needing you to see her. She didn't rise for you. She didn't grow for you. She didn't win for your approval. She did it for herself. And now you'll never be able to stop her. She didn't become strong by accident. Her strength was not inherited, not handed down, and definitely not given as a gift. Her strength was forged. Forged in silence, in isolation, in moments no one saw. When the world turned its back, when the doors slammed shut, when the phone didn't ring and the help didn't come, she stood there in that stillness and learned how to survive. Not just survive, but evolve. She became who she is because she had no choice but to face herself. And in that quiet space, she met the real version of her. Unfiltered, raw, and undeniable. People think isolation breaks a person, that being alone weakens you, but not her. For her, isolation became the fire that burned away everything weak, everything soft, everything that depended on others to stay standing. When she had no one else to hold on to, she learned to hold on to herself. She became her own anchor, her own backup, her own motivator. The nights were long, the silence was loud, but within that silence, she heard something more powerful than applause. She heard her own voice whisper, "Keep going." That whisper, it was her spark, the beginning of the transformation. While others drowned in loneliness, she swam through it. She didn't let it consume her. She let it teach her. It taught her how to walk without company, how to laugh without an audience, how to build herself up without someone else's words. She found out that strength doesn't come from having people. It comes from losing them and still rising. You want to know what real power is? Real power is knowing how to be alone and not feel empty. Real power is sitting with your own thoughts, your own demons, your own insecurities, and facing them head on. No distractions, no noise, no masks. That woman, she did that. She didn't run from herself. She didn't distract herself with temporary escapes. She didn't numb the pain. She looked it in the eye and dared it to break her. And when it tried, it failed. Because the woman who has faced herself, her deepest pain, her darkest hours, her most vulnerable moments, is a woman no one can intimidate. She's been to hell and built a home there. She sat with sadness and didn't let it swallow her. She cried, wiped her own tears, and then stood back up stronger than before. That kind of strength, that's forged, that's earned, and that's what makes her dangerous. When you rise in front of people, you tend to perform, you put on a show, try to impress, seek applause. But when you rise in solitude, the only person you are performing for is yourself. There's no audience to fool, no mask to wear. You become real, raw, honest. And in that honesty, you find clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you need, what you'll never tolerate again. And became clear on her worth, clear on her boundaries, clear on what she brings to the table. And when you're clear, when you know exactly who you are, you become immovable, unshakable. People will try to rattle you, but they'll fail because you've already faced storms stronger than them. You've already weathered the nights they couldn't survive. You don't flinch anymore because fear doesn't control you. Loneliness doesn't define you. Approval doesn't fuel you. The woman who rises alone has mastered the art of solitude. And solitude is sacred. It's where she sharpened her mind, strengthened her spirit, and trained her emotions. While others depended on crowds, she depended on discipline. She taught herself when no one else would teach her. She motivated herself when no one else saw her value. She believed in herself when believing seemed foolish. That mindset, that mental toughness, that's not natural, it's forged. And now that she's forged, she's unstoppable. Because now she doesn't need you to like her. She doesn't need you to support her. She doesn't even need you to understand her. She walks into rooms carrying her own validation. She speaks without seeking agreement. She lives by her own standards, not by society's timelines or expectations. That confidence you see, that power in her step, that was built when no one was watching. Her strength wasn't born in front of the crowd, it was born in the moments of silence, when all she had was herself. And here's the part most people miss. Rising alone doesn't mean she wants to be alone forever. It means she's willing to be alone for as long as it takes to become who she was always meant to be. She's not waiting on someone to come save her. She is the savior she needed. She's the answer to her own prayers. And that kind of woman, she becomes a light for others, not because she wants to be admired, but because she knows what it feels like to be in the dark. So don't pity the woman who stands alone. Don't question her strength just because she walks without a crowd. That woman is not weak. She's wise. She's not broken. She's battle-tested. And the battles that tried to destroy her only ended up building her. She is the result of every lonely night she didn't quit. Every tear she turned into fuel. Every silence she turned into strategy. Every rejection she turned into redirection. And now, when you see her standing tall, remember, she didn't just rise, she forged her rise. And that's what makes her the most dangerous kind of woman you'll ever meet. She doesn't follow the crowd, she doesn't bend to trends, and she doesn't shapeshift just to fit in. You can't box her in, you can't label her, and you sure can't predict her next move. She's not interested in the approval of people who never built anything real for themselves. See, she doesn't walk the common path because she knows the crowd is rarely right. The crowd is loud, but she is focused, and focus beats noise every single time. When you rise alone, you don't just learn how to survive. You learn how to think for yourself. You stop looking side to side and start looking straight ahead. You stop asking for permission and start trusting your instinct. And trust me, instinct sharpened in solitude is more dangerous than advice echoed by the masses. Because while others were busy trying to be accepted, she was mastering the art of being different, of being original, of being real. This kind of woman doesn't need validation. She's not waiting on compliments. She's not performing to earn claps. She's moved past the phase of needing applause to know her worth. Because when you rise alone, you learn that self-respect hits harder than attention. She's not trying to be seen, she's trying to build. She's not trying to fit in, she's trying to stand out on her own terms. She knows who she is because she took the time to unlearn what the world forced on her. She stripped away the lies, the expectations, the noise, and when all of that was gone, what remained was pure, unshakable identity. That's why she's so bold. That's why she walks the way she does. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. She knows where she's going, and she doesn't need the crowd to follow her. She expects them not to. She's dangerous because she's unpredictable. She's not playing by the rules written by someone else. She's writing her own book, page by page, decision by decision. And because she doesn't need approval, she can do what others are too scared to even dream of. That's the power of independence. Not just financial independence, but mental independence. Emotional independence. She doesn't need to be led, she leads herself. People fear what they can't control, and this woman cannot be controlled. You can't manipulate her with guilt or shame or flattery. You can't dangle acceptance in front of her like a reward because she already accepts herself. She's not looking for a seat at someone else's table. She's building her own. And guess what? When she builds it, she decides who eats. That's real power. When the world tries to silence her, she gets louder, not with noise, but with results. She doesn't argue with people who misunderstand her value. She doesn't beg to be included. She's not chasing attention. Attention finds her, because power speaks loudest in silence. When she walks into a room, people feel her energy before she says a single word. That's what happens when you walk in authenticity. You don't need to announce your presence announces you. She's dangerous not because she wants to dominate others, but because she refuses to be dominated. She refuses to shrink, to soften, to dim her light just to make others feel comfortable. And the world isn't used to that. The world is used to women who conform, women who apologize for being powerful, women who wait to be chosen, but not her. She chooses herself every time. She doesn't ask, will they like me? She asks, does this align with who I am? That kind of mindset scares people who depend on the opinions of others to feel important. She's not swayed by gossip, peer pressure, or cheap praise. She's grounded, not because she's perfect, but because she's aware, and awareness is a form of freedom most people never taste. She knows the cost of conformity. She's seen what happens when you betray yourself just to be accepted, and she's not interested in that life. She'd rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by people who only tolerate a version of her that plays small. That's why she's rare. That's why she's respected. And that's why she can't be replaced. Because the woman who rises alone doesn't just lead herself, she inspires others to lead themselves too. Not by preaching, but by example. Not by demanding, but by demonstrating. Her life becomes a blueprint, not because she set out to be a role model, but because people are hungry for authenticity in a world full of copies. She is a reminder that you can be powerful without being loud, assertive without being aggressive, and unshakable without being cruel. Her strength doesn't scream, it speaks. Her confidence doesn't intimidate, it liberates. And her independence doesn't isolate, it attracts the right energy, the right people, the right opportunities. The road she walks, it's not easy, it's not pretty, but it's real. And because it's real, it's worth it. She's not living to impress. She's living to express. And in that expression, She's unlocked something most people spend their whole lives searching for: freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes when you stop performing and start living in your truth. So if you ever wonder why she stands out, why she's respected without demanding it, why people either fear her or admire her, it's because she's different. And she chose to be. She's not a product of the system. She's not a follower of trends. She is a leader of herself, a rebel with a purpose. And that kind of woman, that's the most dangerous kind of all. She didn't wait for someone to rescue her. She didn't cry for the world to understand her pain. She got up, alone, and made a choice to turn her pain into purpose. That's the kind of transformation that separates the fragile from the fierce. When life knocked her down, she didn't just get up. She got up with lessons. She got up stronger, sharper, and more focused than ever before. Because rising alone doesn't mean rising without wounds. It means rising in spite of them. It means carrying your scars like armor, not shame. Pain has a way of introducing you to your true self. When you're at your lowest, when everything is stripped away, who are you? That's the moment she found out she was built different, that she didn't need saving, she needed space. Space to feel, to break, to rebuild. And in that space, she discovered something dangerous: resilience. Not the kind that's loud or dramatic, but the kind that's quiet, steady, and relentless. Most people run from pain, they hide from it, they numb it, but she faced it head on. She stared down the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss, and she didn't flinch. Because she knew something most people don't. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the teacher. And if you let it, it will teach you more than any book, any mentor, or any comfort zone ever could. Her pain didn't make her bitter. It made her better. It didn't harden her heart, it sharpened her vision. She stopped expecting life to be fair and started preparing for it to be tough. That shift alone, that's what makes her dangerous. She's no longer shocked when challenges come. She's ready. Because she's been through enough storms to know how to build shelter. She doesn't panic when things fall apart. She rebuilds calmly, confidently, and without complaint. When you rise alone, you become your own healer, your own motivator, your own guide. And that self-reliance, that's not just survival, it's power. She knows that now. She doesn't crumble under pressure. She thrives in it because pressure reveals what you're really made of. And what she's made of? Steel and fire, grace and grit. She's not one-dimensional. She's a storm wrapped in elegance. And that contradiction confuses people. It scares them because they expect pain to break people, not to build them. They didn't see her in the dark. They didn't see her crying in silence, questioning everything, wondering if she'd make it. They didn't see the nights she wanted to give up. But she didn't. And that right there is where the danger begins. Because when someone survives the worst version of their life, they become untouchable. They no longer fear failure. They no longer need approval. They no longer need depend on the world to keep them whole. She's not angry. She's aware. Aware of who hurt her, yes, but more importantly, aware of who she became because of it. And she wouldn't trade that growth for anything. That heartbreak, it built her boundaries. That betrayal, it sharpened her discernment. That silence from the people she expected support from, it taught her how to stand on her own 2 feet. She doesn't hate the pain, she honors it. Because it forced her to evolve, it made her prioritize peace over people, purpose over popularity, truth over temporary pleasure. That's what rising alone does. It clears out the noise so you can hear your own voice again. And her voice, it's no longer timid. It doesn't tremble. It speaks with conviction because it was forged in fire. She's the kind of woman who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word. Her presence tells the story. Not a story of ease, but of endurance. Not of comfort, but of character. She earned every bit of strength in her bones. She didn't borrow it, she built it. That's why you can't shake her, you can't intimidate her. Because she's been through worse and still stood tall. The world loves a comeback story, but few are ready to face what it takes to come back from rock bottom. She faced it, lived through it, and now she carries it not as a burden, but as a badge. She's not who she was before the pain. She's wiser now. Quieter perhaps, but deeper, more intentional. And that depth, it's magnetic. It draws the right people and repels the wrong ones. Pain gave her clarity. It showed her what matters, what doesn't, and who never did. It stripped away illusions and exposed truth. And now that she sees clearly, she moves differently. She no longer rushes. She no longer chases. She attracts. 'Cause she finally understands her worth, not based on what others say, but based on what she knows. And that knowledge, that's her shield, that's her sword, that's why she's dangerous. Not because she's looking for revenge, but because she's no longer vulnerable to the same things that used to break her. She's healed, not perfectly, but powerfully, and that healing has made her unstoppable. She's not asking for pity, she's not waiting for applause, she's walking forward with her head high, her boundaries strong, and her spirit unbreakable. Because the woman who rises alone, with pain in her past and purpose in her heart, that woman is a force the world isn't ready for. And if you ever doubt her strength, just remember, she didn't just survive the storm, she became it. She stopped depending on the world the moment she realized the world was never built to carry her. That moment of truth, it came quietly, like most revelations do, not with a scream, but with a whisper. She looked around and saw the pattern. Every time she relied too much, she broke too deep. Every time she expected someone to hold her up, she fell harder. That's when she chose something dangerous. She chose self-dependence. She wasn't born with this mindset. She earned it through disappointments, through heartbreaks, through nights where her only company was her own thoughts, through moments when her silence screamed louder than words ever could. It was in those moments, those dark, quiet hours, that she learned to trust herself more than anyone else. Not out of arrogance, not out of ego, but out of survival. A woman who depends on no one but herself, that woman's not hard, she's free. She's not cold, she's calculated. She knows the world doesn't owe her anything, so she doesn't beg for what she can build. She doesn't wait for a handout. She becomes the hand that lifts herself. And that kind of independence, that's power you can't buy. That's confidence you can't fake. She's the type who's done waiting for someone to understand her vision. While others talk, she executes. While others doubt, she decides. She doesn't need validation because she's done the inner work. She's asked herself the hard questions. She's faced the ugly parts of her story and didn't flinch. And when you face yourself with honesty, nobody can use your past against you. You own it, you grow from it, you rise through it. This kind of self-dependence scares people. It threatens the insecure because she's not easily impressed, not easily influenced, and certainly not easily manipulated. You can't buy her with compliments. You can't control her with attention. Her peace is no longer for sale. Her standards, higher than most can reach. And if you can't match her energy, she won't lower hers. She'll walk away quietly, confidently, without drama. People misunderstand her strength. They think she's heartless because she doesn't chase. They think she's bitter because she doesn't beg, but she's neither. She's aware of her worth, aware of her purpose, aware of what it costs her every time she chooses someone over herself. She's paid that price one too many times, and now, she's done. When she started depending on herself, her life changed. She no longer panicked when someone left. She no longer crumbled when things didn't go her way. She adjusted. She adapted. She elevated. Because that's what self-dependence does. It makes you agile. It makes you resilient. It makes you unstoppable. She built routines around her healing, habits around her growth, boundaries around her peace. And now she protects her energy like a fortress, not because she's guarded, but because she knows not everyone deserves access. She's not afraid to be alone. In fact, solitude became her sanctuary, the place where she met herself again, the place where she rebuilt what the world tried to break. You have to understand, depending on herself didn't make her hard. It made her real. It made her grounded. It made her intentional. She no longer moves based on emotion. She moves based on vision. And that's why her steps are so calculated. She's not impulsive. She's strategic. She knows exactly where she's going, and she's not waiting for a crowd to come with her. She doesn't flaunt her independence. She lives it. It's in how she carries herself. It's in how she speaks with clarity, not noise. It's in how she loves with strength, not need. She doesn't look for someone to complete her. She complements herself. And if someone adds peace to her life, good. If not, they're gone. Simple as that. The dangerous woman is not the one who fights for attention. It's the one who doesn't need it. She's too busy building her empire, too focused on her calling, too invested in her own growth to be distracted by drama. You can't throw her off her game because her game isn't built on anyone else's moves. It's hers, and hers alone. And what happens when things fall apart? She doesn't fall apart with them. She recalibrates. She regroups. She recovers, all on her own. That doesn't mean she doesn't feel pain. It means she doesn't let pain paralyze her. She feels it, learns from it, and keeps moving. That's her rhythm. That's her discipline. That's her fire. The world teaches women to wait. Wait to be chosen, wait to be saved, wait to be validated. But she chose a different path. She chose herself. And that choice, that changed everything. She no longer walks with hesitation. She walks with conviction. Every step she takes is a declaration. I am enough. She doesn't need backup. She doesn't need applause. Her results speak for themselves. Her silence is louder than noise. Her presence is heavier than words. And when she walks into a room, she doesn't need to announce her strength. You feel it. So if you ever meet a woman who depends on no one, understand this. She didn't wake up that way. She was made that way by broken promises, by unanswered prayers, by lonely nights that turned into powerful mornings. And now she's a woman who rises, not because someone lifts her, but because she refuses to stay down. That's the woman who's dangerous. That's the woman who can't be controlled. That's the woman who's rewriting her story without permission, without apology, and without delay. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought isolation meant she had nothing left. But they misunderstood the entire storm. See, when a woman rises alone, she becomes a storm in stillness. Her power is not in how loud she is, but in how steady she stands. She doesn't need noise to prove her strength. She doesn't need company to feel complete. She rises quietly, but when she does, everything around her shifts. She was once underestimated, looked at like she wasn't enough. like she needed someone to lead her, fix her, define her. But what they didn't realize was this: every time they overlooked her, every time they doubted her, she was sharpening herself. She was studying. She was watching. She was becoming. You see, the most dangerous transformation happens when no one is watching. And that's exactly where she rebuilt herself. In the shadow. There's a certain kind of woman who disappears for a while. You don't hear from her. She's not posting, not partying, not showing up for anything but herself. And when she comes back, she's unrecognizable, stronger, smarter, more disciplined. Her energy, elevated. Her vibe, untouchable. That's the woman who went into isolation, not to escape, but to evolve. Solitude became her training ground. While others sought attention, she sought alignment. While others chased people, she chased purpose. She wasn't interested in being seen. She was interested in becoming someone worth seeing. And that process, that grind, it didn't happen with applause. It happened in silence, in discipline, in sacrifice. You think it's easy to walk alone? It's not. It's one of the hardest things a person can do, especially when the world teaches women to attach, to depend, to soften themselves for acceptance. But she chose the hard road. She chose the lonely mornings, the quiet nights, the endless days of doing it all on her own. Not because she wanted to be hard, but because she wanted to be whole. They didn't see the tears she cried behind closed doors. They didn't hear the doubts that echoed in her mind late at night. They didn't feel the weight she carried silently, yet kept showing up every single day. That's the woman who's dangerous, because she faced every demon without a shoulder to lean on. She wiped her own tears, picked herself up, and still had the courage to keep going. The truth is, she doesn't need saving. She never did. What she needed was space, to discover who she was when the noise died down, to face the broken parts without distraction, to build herself back, not according to who the world said she should be, but according to the truth buried deep within her. That kind of solitude, it doesn't break her. It refines. Now she's unshakable, not because she's perfect, but because she knows who she is. She doesn't second guess her worth. She doesn't shrink for approval. She doesn't play small so others feel comfortable. Her presence is bold. Her silence speaks volumes. And when she walks into a room, she carries a quiet authority that demands respect without a single word. She's not the loudest in the crowd, but she's the one people watch. She's not boastful, but she's undeniable. That's what happens when a woman rises alone. She no longer needs to prove herself. Her journey speaks for her. Her growth is evident in her discipline. Her power is felt in her peace. You can't disturb her, because she's already lived through storms bigger than your opinion. People will try to figure her out, but she's not easily understood. That's because she's not operating on the level she used to. She's grown beyond the need for validation. She no longer explains herself to those committed to misunderstanding her. She's outgrown environments that once felt like home, but were built to keep her small. She made peace with the silence. She found strength in being alone, and now solitude is her sanctuary, not her sentence. Because while others drown in the noise, she found clarity in the quiet. She no longer fears being alone. She embraces it. That's where she plans. That's where she strategizes. That's where she builds the next version of herself. And when she returns to the world, she's not the same. She's never the same. When a woman rises alone, she becomes ungovernable. Her strength isn't borrowed, it's built. Her value isn't assigned, she defines it. Her path isn't followed, she creates it. And that kind of woman, she's not waiting to be chosen, She chooses herself. She doesn't beg to be heard. She speaks, and you listen. She doesn't chase attention. She earns respect. And when people try to come back into her life, they find the door's not so easy to open. Because the version of her that needed company no longer exists. She became her own best friend, her own protector, her own motivator. And when you become all of that for yourself, the world loses its power over you. Let them wonder how she did it. Let them whisper about how she changed. Because she did change. She grew up. She leveled up. She realized that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And solitude, that's where true power is born. Not in the noise, not in the crowds, but in the quiet moments where no one claps. But she still moves. That's the woman who's dangerous. Not because she wants to hurt anyone, but because no one can hurt her the way they used to. She's healed. She's focused. And above all, she's free. So if you're rising alone right now, don't you dare question your path. Don't let loneliness lie to you. What you're building, they can't see yet. But one day they'll realize the woman they left behind became the woman they could never reach. Because the most dangerous woman isn't the loudest. She's the one who rose when no one saw her rising. Stay strong, stay silent, stay rising.